Hi, everyone. This is Ali-John Chaudhary, psychotherapist, and I'm here today with Fern Chapman, author. And this is going to be an exciting episode because this is our 51st episode of Brothers, Sisters, Strangers. So we're already 50 episodes into it. And what we wanted to do is just really take the pulse today, really find out where we're at when it comes to what we've been able to create with regards to sibling estrangement and such, because this has been a journey for us. And we're really excited to be able to share what we've done, where we're going with this, and just basically having a talk about all of that combined together. So happy to have you here, Fern. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, 51 episodes, and look at what great friends we've become.
Yes. Yes.
I remember the day that I reached out to you. I was researching Brothers, Sisters, Strangers, which is my /memoir/social research book about sibling estrangement. And I was looking for somebody who had hands-on experience dealing with those who are estranged. There were plenty of people I could find to interview who had studied the experience, but very few therapists or counselors. And you had created the page, and I IM'd you and asked if we could have a bit of a talk. And when we did talk, I realized that we were both hoeing the same ground. And that's where I seem to remember we came up with some of our plans.
Yeah. It was a powerful meeting, I think, initially when we connected with each other, because it was like we were finding old friends. It's like all of a sudden we just related to each other. And as soon as we started talking about sibling estrangement, there was like almost like a synergy that started appearing. And I keep using that word when I describe, our dynamic together, you and I, Fern, because there's something that happens when we come together like this. There's the idea that we're able to somehow, carry this topic and bring it further than what we initially started with. And as you said, this is our 51st episode, and it's so exciting to be able to look back and see like what we were able to accomplish and what we were able to bring together in terms of general need, I think, for a number of us that are going through this, right?
Yeah, I have a couple of responses. One is that the synergy, I think, is tied to the fact that we've both experienced sibling estrangement. But I have the lived experience of both estrangement and reconciliation, and you have the added psychological insights to contribute understanding to what happens and why it happens. I also want to say that when we started all this, almost nothing existed. And we have watched this grow and build to the point where Prince Harry has come out with his book Spare and described his very difficult relationship with his own brother.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful book. I finished it actually recently, and talks about his own mental health issues, due to his experiences in the military. But he talks about a lot of things that we're familiar with, the lack of support, different things of that nature, and that was a really good sounding board, I thought, for what a lot of us are going through, because this is a hidden epidemic, right? And
Right.
yeah,
I actually call it a Me Too movement, because I get emails every single day from somebody who says, "Oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was all alone."
yeah, exactly. And that's been my experience as well, is that we've basically been able to create a conversation where we're able to discuss this openly, where in the past, I mean, this has been rarely discussed. And now you've got people that are opening up more about it, like on Psychology Today, USA Today. There's a number of different radio stations that are taking this up now. So you can see how this has struck a nerve with the public, especially, and that's the thing.
Well, I think it's important too to recognize that the family is evolving and the very structure of the family has changed. And sadly, a lot of the phenomenons that glued families together no longer exist. So we find ourselves really at the precipice of a lot of change, and some of the fallout from it is sibling estrangement.
I absolutely agree. I think that that's something that's really started to happen with regards to the shift in families. And a lot of us are recognizing that families aren't always a safe place, right? It's not
Right.
because you're related to someone that somehow you're going to be safe, that your emotional needs are going to be taken care of, or in some cases, your physical needs as well, So in some cases, it's best to keep certain family members at bay if they're just engaging in too much toxic behavior.
I think, Ali-John, before we came along, uh, estranged siblings often found themselves isolated twice. So they were isolated from the family member they may have cut off, or they who cut them off. And then they were isolated from a support system because nobody talked about this. It's too stigmatized.
Hmm.
And there was no recognition of the devastation of this. And by the way, the devastation is very hard to even describe in words, because it's a form of grief and a kind of mourning the living
Yep.
that's endless. And what we've tried to do is help those who are struggling with this to find their best life. They're going to have to live with the reality, but how can they do it in a way that gives them a rich life and isn't constantly being pulled back into the losses that they've experienced?
I agree with you. I think that that's especially important in finding ways to empower people as they go through this process. And this journey has really been about empowering, our viewers and such to be able to help them to become better people, to get stronger, and being able to name some of what's going on. And we've been able to put words to a lot of this. We've been able to come up with different topics that are very much connected to our community when it comes to this shunning, enabling, narcissism, degrees of estrangement, the phases in life that contribute to estrangement. That was something that you brought up, and the redefining of family relations, self-esteem issues, going no contact, and the list goes on, right? I mean, there's so many different things that this branches out into and touches, right?
One of the things that's fascinated me about writing about this topic, or even our conversations and the episodes we've created, is that every time you fear that you may have covered it, you realize you've only begun to scratch the surface. There are so many more topics behind the ones that we address in these episodes.
Yeah.
And honestly, we could have material for years because there's so much to explore. And
Yeah.
that's why I think our services, we're really creating an understanding for people to how complicated this is.
You're absolutely right, and I think there's been so many themes we've touched upon, and we talk about the theory of what it looks like, and also we give actionable advice to people as well. I think that's important, that people get more out of watching our videos to be able to understand, and of course share in the Facebook community that we have on sibling estrangement, sharing, coping, connecting. I mean, it's especially important for people to continue to empower themselves. And I think this leads us to some of our memorable episodes, because I think we've all got favorite episodes. And truth be told, I like all of them. I got to say, I mean, each of them is particularly informative and empowering. But there are a few of them that, I feel that touched more upon certain aspects that I thought were personally important for me. I think my number one is perhaps the dealing with the holidays and sibling estrangement. That one was an especially important one because for some people, the holidays are just not a time for them to be festive, right? And most often, in some cases, when you're going to be thinking about family, you may feel marginalized and isolated, And I really thought it was important to help people, especially when it came to voicing this issue during that time of the year.
It's funny you say that because sales of my books during the holiday season go way up. I feel like it's an unusual moment, but that, of course, how books sell more at holidays anyway, but mine sell because people are struggling to get through and they can't wait for January 1st. And reading my books gives them some comfort once again that they're not alone.
I agree. Your book has been a very, very powerful voice to be able to bring humanity, bring understanding, and clarity, I think, with regards to this issue. And I think that it's a far-reaching book, and I keep suggesting it to people, especially in cases like this, especially during the holidays, you know. Um,
Right.
I know that the bereavement and sibling estrangement episode was another one that I think is really good. It's perhaps it's right up there in terms of my top favorites because of the fact that we painted a roadmap with regards to healing and harmony concerning the stages of grief, particularly adapted to sibling estrangement. And I thought that was especially important that we needed to have that back.
Right. It's a very unique type of grief. And
Yeah.
that's what's given us this opportunity to explore it. It's not like a death where that's final and there's no negotiating.
Yeah.
So yes, I can certainly see why you like that one. Actually, I think if I had to pick one, I think I'd say that toxic positivity and sibling estrangement was one of my favorites. And the reason is that many people engage in toxic positivity and they don't recognize that they're doing it and they didn't know it had a label. So I think that was a great one to introduce our audience
Yeah.
to a way in which we interact that's not often acknowledged.
I like that episode too, especially, and it's true though. We're faced with this type of censorship, right? Where you have to have like positive vibes only in that way, and you can't really talk about things that bother us, especially in family settings or with a sibling, especially. So it's interesting, and that was very much of a good episode. I found that was empowering, and we've had some positive feedback from a lot of people. Hmm.
The other one I really liked is personalization and sibling estrangement. And that's because I am so gifted at personalizing that it served as an important reminder that I need to watch myself.
Absolutely. That is one of the things that comes up the most often with a lot of people in our community. You're absolutely right. We all do this to an extent. And the idea, of course, is to catch ourselves when we do it to make sure that we don't go too far into it, right? And about making this about ourselves, because it rarely is about ourselves, right? So
Right. And that's taken me years to understand.
you're absolutely right, and I really like that episode too. I think it's a great one too, and it empowers people when they understand just what's happening. So other episodes I really enjoyed are the self-esteem one. In terms of how that can affect us in terms of our decision making, the choices we make in life and such. That was a series that I thought was especially empowering. And I hope that people have a chance to take a look at that one especially. And another one that I thought was underrated is the six types of courage in sibling estrangement. And that one is a good way to do the inventory and how we're affected in different areas of our lives and how we can adapt. And someone even mentioned that this is actually good to journal with as well. So if you're using this as a particular tool to kind of look in and see how you're doing, that's the video that you probably want to watch as well.
Wow. We've done a lot.
So,
So what
yeah.
are we going to do in the future?
I think that kind of leads us to that question, doesn't it? And there's so many things that we can touch upon when it comes to sibling estrangement. But to let our viewers know where we're going, we're talking, you and I, about doing case studies. About bringing up certain issues that are coming up within some family or sibling settings in some ways that we can explore and perhaps give our opinion on to help people move forward, especially, right?
Right. Yeah, I
Um,
have a whole list of topics I'd like to explore, and I'll rattle off a few here.
sure.
Trauma bonding, which is a big piece of this.
Yep.
Core beliefs, in other words, what we absolutely believe about ourselves and how we
Yep.
bring it into that sibling relationship. Religious divides. One question that I've gotten quite a bit is, how do you cope with the loss of other family members, particularly children, nieces, nephews? And
Yep.
I really look forward to discussing that at some point.
You're absolutely right. These are very important topics that need some attention in terms of the ramifications onto other relationships. And, I think that the whole experience of religion and how that affects people in general or a person that's been in a cult, for example, can also be something that may be a matter of exploring as well, because there are certain religious systems that are more rigid and that people unfortunately fall prey to with regards to that. And defining further topics on sibling estrangement is something that are certain dynamics that are key, are still up for discovery, I think, especially. And I think that we're going to be able to, of course, bring that to light. And I think that exploring mental health issues, for example, is another one that we can do, that will do especially that, and take us in that direction. So there are different problems that come up in terms of mental health, and I think there are some episodes that will be worthy of discussing with this.
So I have one other future goal, and that is to actually meet you in person and see how tall you are, because I only just get a little rectangle on my computer and I see your face, but I never see anything below your shoulders. So there you go. I hope one day we can actually look at each other face to face and give each other a hug.
Fern, it's so interesting that you mentioned this, because I consider you a friend as well, and it's true, we've never met face to face, ironically.
But
And
we've talked quite a bit.
we have, and we've opened up with each other on all sorts of different things, and I consider you a friend. I mean, you're more than just a partner to me. You're a friend, and you have a deep understanding of this, and we have a deep connection precisely because of this. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I look forward to all of our discussions in the future. And like I said, one day over coffee.
Absolutely. So, should we talk about resources before we go?
Yes.
Let's just mention our number one resource for each other
Great.
before we end.
So the Sibling Estrangement Journal, which I released in November, has been picking up sales, and many readers have written me and said that it's extremely helpful in putting words to feelings on the page. And so this book actually explores various aspects of sibling estrangement and then poses questions so that you can understand what's happened and why it's happened.
That is a great resource, and I absolutely approve of people delving deeper into that. That is wonderful to have and to empower ourselves. My number one resource at this point would perhaps be the intensive workshops we're doing, with some of the members in our community. I think that's important for people to have in terms of resources, and it's a 4-session plan basically that people follow in terms of modules with me, as we do this on Zoom, and they can empower themselves with regards to their self-esteem. So there's so few resources out there on this topic that people want to, of course, delve deeper when they know that we understand this on a psychological level, and they can get a chance to experiment with that in terms of experiential strategies that really allow people to go further to heal and to empower themselves with sibling estrangement.
It's really remarkable, Ali-John, that this topic has been so ignored, and it is so devastating at the same time.
I agree. And thankfully, we're able to bring light to this and to help people find their dignity and grace with regards to their situation in this matter. So it's wonderful to do this with you, Fern.
It's been a great journey, and here's to 51 more.
Absolutely. Thanks again, and we'll talk again very soon.
Okay,
Take
thanks.
care.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Oops. Where'd you go?
I'm here. I'm just gonna stop it here.